This story is about a married couple who adopted a chimpanzee and treated him as their son. Unfortunately, this undying love for the wild animal would instigate a horrible incident, marking one of the worst animal attacks on a human ever recorded. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. Today, we dive deep into the case of Moe the chimpanzee and his adoptive human parents, St. James and LaDonna Davis. Welcome to Final Affliction.
He stuck his thumb in my eye and peeled off this side of my face over my other side of the face. Then he drugged me, bit off my heel, and he drugged me down a hill 30 feet.
St. James and LaDonna met in West Covina, California, and became high school sweethearts, dating for several years. Despite the growing pressure around them to finally tie the knot, the two stalled their holy matrimony. St. James had a few misgivings about settling down. As a NASCAR driver and car enthusiast, St. James felt marriage would hinder him from pursuing his passions. However, in 1966, he succumbed to the pressure, and their marriage was put in place in a small brick church in the same town where they met. Unfortunately, the tall, good-looking NASCAR driver experienced cold feet and never showed up at the wedding. Instead, he spent the day with his one true love, tinkering with cars. Meanwhile, LaDonna was left in the church, embarrassed and alone with her friends and relatives. St. James couldn't have thought of a better way to gain the entire neighborhood's exasperation. For the next few years, he was the talk of the town. The mere utterance of his name left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth. Finding a way to escape the wrath of the town folks, St. James discovered what he sought in a newspaper ad. A merchant ship was looking for additional crew members for a long-distance trip. More importantly, all the expenses would be shouldered by the company. St. James jumped at the opportunity. For the next few months, St. James traveled around the world on a ship, despite not having been on a boat before. While on his travels, something unexpected and life-changing happened to St. James. It was an event that instigated his lifelong love and tragic fall from grace. As the ship heaved near the coast of Africa, it was forced to land in Tanzania after a malfunction. St. James had to spend a few days there and acquainted himself with a group of Tanzanian hunters. In a forest hunt, the Tanzanian hunters killed a female chimpanzee after it gave birth, leaving the newborn chimp to fend for itself. Feeling sorry for what he witnessed, St. James decided to care for the animal, and the rest was history. Getting home was difficult, but St. James found a few German missionaries who helped him secure a flight back to LA. At this point, the chimp, or Moe, as St. James called him, was already his boy. Arriving at the airport, Estelle, his mother, welcomed him. Accompanying her was LaDonna, who was fuming with rage and despair. After all, St. James hasn't shown his face to her since their supposed wedding day. As angry as LaDonna was, she couldn't help but notice something was different about St. James. Well, he was carrying a baby chimpanzee in place of his luggage, for one. It was awkward between LaDonna and St. James. However, Moe's arrival in their life helped dissipate any resentment from LaDonna. Sure enough, LaDonna's mother and Estelle, who were close friends, fell head over heels for Moe. Soon, LaDonna did too, and so the couple got back together. On June 6, 1970, St. James and LaDonna became the Davises in a modest ceremony. Moe was the best man. It was the beginning of an unconventional but happy household. Tragic news, however, seldom came at a favorable time. A year into the marriage, LaDonna was diagnosed with cancer. Worse, she needed a hysterectomy. For someone who wanted to be a mother, LaDonna was devastated. She wanted to initiate a divorce from St. James, ashamed she could no longer bear a child. However, St. James only responded with the following: "We already got a kid." As LaDonna wailed on St. James' shoulder, Moe sat quietly on his chair and stared at the couple. From then on, he became their child, a child who was never human. But he was just as complex. There were times when the Davises would be surprised at the range of emotions Moe expressed. As years passed, tragedy found a way to seep into their lives. One day, on August 1998, a welder came over to fix Moe's cage. However, he left a piece of equipment that gave Moe an electrical shock, scaring him and causing him to run away. Missing for a few hours, the Davises were forced to call the police. However, by the time Moe was found, he had already dented a police car and injured an officer. A year later, a visitor came to meet Moe. Despite being told not to put her hand inside a cage, the woman did anyway. Consequently, Moe bit her fingertip, mistaking her red fingernail for his favorite snack, candy licorice. This was the final straw, and the intervening officials of West Covina deemed Moe a danger to the city. Police officers armed with tranquilizer guns arrived at the Davis residence to take Moe. Though he resisted, St. James was wrestled and pinned to the ground. He could only wail as the officers ran inside their house to take his beloved boy. Seeing his father hurt, Moe screamed wildly and banged his hands and feet against the cage. Police swarmed him and shot him with a dart gun squarely in the stomach. Afterward, they tossed the unconscious chimp inside a horse trailer, far from the cozy cage he knew. The dream had unraveled itself, and St. James and LaDonna could do nothing about it. What came after were years of trial and much attention from the public. In 2004, St. James and LaDonna succeeded in getting Moe transferred to Animal Haven Ranch, a private sanctuary where the couple could visit Moe without restrictions. However, on Moe's 39th birthday, a truly horrifying incident would spill into the lives of the Davises. It was a fine morning on March 3, 2005. For the second time, St. James and LaDonna checked the items in the car. They sifted through the piles of toys, balloons, and presents, wondering if they had missed anything. They brought a white frosted sheet cake with raspberry filling. It was Moe's birthday after all. With St. James behind the wheel and LaDonna in the shotgun, the two made their way out the driveway and rode to the Animal Haven Ranch. It was a 3-hour drive, but they were used to it. Knowing their son was waiting for them made the trip all the more worthwhile. St. James hurriedly parked the car in a vacant space near the entrance and grabbed a small carton of chocolate milk. He hopped out of the car and briskly walked toward Moe. LaDonna beamed a smile and followed suit when she brought the cake. Moe clapped his hands and howled wildly, ecstatic to see his parents. He may not have known it was his birthday, but he knew they loved him. LaDonna brought the cake down, cut a few slices, and handed them to St. James and then to Moe. It was a picture-perfect family reunion. However, something sinister brewed in the distance. A few yards away from LaDonna, a young adult male chimpanzee made its way out of its cage and crept slowly toward them. LaDonna spotted the creature, locking eyes with it. The chimp stood formidably, puffing its chest and exposing its entire upper body that was stronger than 4 men. The chimp decided to charge. The eerie silence of the park erupted into chaos, filled with LaDonna's frightful screams. Seeing the chimp run toward his wife, St. James rushed to the rescue. As the two got closer, the chimp reached LaDonna and pummeled her back, knocking her into St. James' arms. The chimp somehow managed to lock its powerful jaws on LaDonna's left hand, clamping on her delicate thumb. The creature yanked on it, removing her finger like a potato from the ground. The chimp wanted LaDonna's head, but St. James managed to push her underneath their picnic table. LaDonna screamed and tried to command the chimp to stop and submit. However, it was to no avail. The wild chimp may have looked similar to Moe, but it was not cut from the same cloth. Blocking the rampaging chimp, St. James readied himself to receive the creature's wrath. However, the 6'2" former running back didn't expect to see another chimp running toward him. It was bigger and older. One look, and he knew it was more dangerous than the first one. His heart sank, and St. James let out an unrecognizable scream. With all his might, he pushed the bigger chimp away, but it pounced on his back, prompting the smaller one to follow suit. One of them clamped its mighty jaws on St. James' face, crushing the bone above his eyebrow. The creatures then stuck its fingers into St. James' eye socket, gouging out his eye. The wild chimps continued to mutilate St. James, biting off his nose and chewing away at his fingers. They tore him to shreds, ripping the face of his skin, lips, and most of his teeth. Finally, as he lay helpless on the ground, they began chomping away at his buttocks, biting his genitals. They castrated him, and there was blood everywhere. LaDonna could do nothing but scream. Eventually, it reached Mark Carruthers, the ranch owner's son-in-law. He came running toward the commotion armed with a revolver. He let loose a shot at the younger, smaller chimp, but it had no effect. Mark quickly ran back to his house and grabbed a more powerful gun. Mark returned, pointed his gun at the bigger chimp, and let loose a shot directed at its head. The chimp's brain exploded, and it fell to the ground. In response, the younger chimp began dragging St. James' body away from Mark. Kneeling down, Mark aimed at the chimp's chest and let loose another shot. It fell down instantaneously, dropping on St. James' back. When paramedics arrived, St. James was unrecognizable. His face was reduced to a bloody lump with a hole. There was so much of his blood at this scene, even the paramedics could not believe the brutality chimpanzees were capable of. The doctors reconstructed his face through dozens of surgeries after putting him into a medically induced coma. In the subsequent investigation, it was discovered that one of the sanctuary owners accidentally left the chimpanzee's cage open. However, even though St. James was now utterly reliant on LaDonna due to his permanent injuries, the two still visited Moe regularly. Unfortunately, tragedy was not done with the Davises. In 2007, Moe disappeared after supposedly breaking out of his cage. An extensive search was done shortly after. However, they found no traces of Moe. The search for Moe bled through the weeks, and then weeks turned into months, and eventually into years. Moe was never found. St. James and LaDonna could do nothing but wait. They still hold out onto the hope that they could see Moe again someday. Today, the life of the Davises revolves around caring for St. James. Although he bears the massive scars from the attack, St. James suffers from a much more painful, invisible wound. I can talk for days about Moe. I just miss him so much. I've never loved anything as much as I loved Moe. After 30 years of caring for Moe, the Davises must somehow find a way to live without him. As for St. James, his life will never be the same, and his scars are just a reminder of the day his pet chimpanzee Moe nearly took him to his final affliction.